When my aunts and uncles filed to have Grandma Eleanor declared incompetent just because she claimed to be broke, I knew I had to step in. I spent my last dime fighting their conservatorship in this story of family betrayal and justice, never realizing that her empty bank account was actually a trap set for them. My name is Zoe Turner, and this is the story of how my family's greed led to their absolute ruin, and how a woman everyone thought was senile outsmarted every single one of them. To understand the explosion that happened in that courtroom, you have to understand the pressure cooker that was my family. For as long as I can remember, the Turner family dynamic revolved around one thing: waiting for Grandma Eleanor to die. It is a harsh thing to say, but it is the truth. My grandfather had been a titan of industry, a man who turned a small textile mill into a logistics empire. When he passed away 15 years ago, he left everything to Eleanor. There were trusts, sure, but Eleanor held the keys. She controlled the properties, the investments, and most importantly, the allowance checks that kept my Uncle Marcus and Aunt Linda living in a fantasy world. I was always the outlier, the black sheep. While my cousins were busy crashing luxury cars and going to universities they eventually dropped out of, I enlisted in the Army the day I turned 18. I spent 6 years overseas, learned how to fix heavy machinery, and saw things that made the petty squabbles of high society look ridiculous. When I came back stateside, I didn't ask for a handout. I used my GI Bill, got a degree in mechanical engineering, and started working for a mid-sized firm in the city. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment, drove a 5-year-old truck, and slept soundly at night knowing I paid for every inch of my life. Because I didn't need their money, I was the only one who actually had a relationship with Grandma Eleanor. I didn't visit her massive estate, known as the Gables, to ask for a check. I went there to play gin rummy, drink her terrible herbal tea, and listen to her stories about the 1960s. She was my friend. But to Marcus and Linda, my father's siblings, she was just an ATM with a pulse. The inciting incident happened on the second Sunday of November. Sunday dinner at the Gables was mandatory. It was a performance. Marcus would wear a 3-piece suit, Linda would drip in jewelry she couldn't afford, and they would spend 3 hours complimenting Eleanor while simultaneously asking about her health with vulture-like precision. I was there that night, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, ignoring the sneers from my cousin Brad. The dinner started normally enough, with the clinking of silver against fine china, but I noticed Eleanor was quiet. She was pushing her peas around her plate, her sharp blue eyes darting between her children. Finally, just as the dessert was being served, Eleanor cleared her throat. She tapped her crystal goblet with a spoon. The room went silent instantly. The greed in the room was palpable. They always assumed an announcement meant a gift. "I have bad news," Eleanor said, her voice trembling slightly. Marcus leaned forward, feigning concern. "What is it, Mother? Is it your heart?" "No," Eleanor whispered, looking down at the tablecloth. "It is the money. It is gone." The silence that followed wasn't respectful. It was the silence of a bomb about to detonate. Linda dropped her fork. "What do you mean, gone?" "Bad investments," Eleanor said, her voice barely audible. "I trusted the wrong people. The market turned. I was trying to recover losses from last year, and I leveraged the estate. The accounts are empty. The creditors are calling. I might lose the house by Christmas."
If you are enjoying this story, please like and subscribe. Also, please comment, as your feedback helps to improve the stories coming.
I watched the faces around the table. I expected shock. I expected fear for her well-being. Instead, I saw rage. Pure, unadulterated fury. Marcus turned a shade of purple I had never seen before. "You leveraged the estate without consulting me? I have a business degree, Mother. How could you be so stupid?" Linda stood up, knocking her chair over. "This has to be a joke. You can't be broke. I have expenses. Brad's tuition is due next month." I stood up, slamming my hand on the table. "Hey, back off. She just told you she's in trouble. Is that all you care about? Your allowances?" Marcus sneered at me. "Shut up, Zoe. You don't understand finance. You play in the dirt for a living. This is a catastrophe." Eleanor looked small. For the first time in my life, the matriarch looked frail. "I am so sorry," she whispered. "I thought you all loved me for me, not for what I could give you." That night ended in chaos. Marcus and Linda stormed out, tires screeching as they sped away from the mansion they suddenly viewed as a sinking ship. I stayed. I helped Eleanor clean up, even though she had staff. I sat with her by the fire. "I can help, Grandma," I told her. "I don't have millions, but I have savings. I have a guest room. You will never be on the street." She looked at me, her eyes watery. "You would do that? Take in a foolish old woman?" "In a heartbeat," I said. I thought that was the bottom. I thought the worst part was that my family were gold diggers. I was wrong. The betrayal was just beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, the reality of Eleanor's poverty set in. The staff at the Gables was let go. The landscaping crew stopped coming. The massive house began to feel cold and abandoned. I started stopping by every day after work to bring groceries. I paid the electric bill when I saw a disconnect notice on the counter. Marcus and Linda didn't visit. Not once. But they were busy. I found out what they were doing when a process server knocked on the heavy oak door of the Gables while I was making Eleanor a grilled cheese sandwich. He handed me a thick envelope. It was a petition for an emergency conservatorship. I read the legal jargon, my blood turning to ice. Marcus and Linda had filed a joint motion. They claimed that Eleanor's sudden and catastrophic mismanagement of assets was proof of severe cognitive decline. They cited dementia, paranoia, and incompetence. They weren't petitioning to help her recover. They were petitioning to seize control of her remaining assets, the house, the jewelry, the physical items inside, to liquidate them. And the kicker, they requested that Eleanor be placed in a state-operated memory care facility immediately, citing that the family estate is no longer safe for her habitation. They were going to lock her away. They were going to throw her in the cheapest hole they could find so they could sell the house and scrape whatever crumbs were left. I showed the papers to Eleanor. She read them without her glasses, her hands steady. "They want to put me away," she said softly. "Not over my dead body," I replied. The escalation was swift and brutal. I tried to call Marcus, but he blocked my number. Linda sent me a text that simply said, "Stay out of this, Zoe. This is adult business." I took a leave of absence from my job. I couldn't leave Eleanor alone. I was terrified they would show up with an ambulance and a court order to drag her out before we even had a hearing. I moved into the Gables. The heating was spotty because the boiler needed repairs we couldn't afford, so we slept in the library with a space heater. Finding a lawyer was a nightmare. Every high-powered firm in the city knew the Turner name, but when I told them the accounts were empty, they suddenly had conflicts of interest. They knew Marcus and Linda had hired a shark, a man named Silas Thorne who specialized in aggressive estate litigation. I finally found Mr. Henderson. He operated out of a strip mall office next to a dry cleaner. He was 70 years old, wore a suit that was out of style in the 90s, and smelled like peppermint and old paper. But he listened. I sat in his office, Eleanor next to me. We explained the situation. "So, let me get this straight," Henderson said, leaning back in his creaky chair. "Your children think you're broke, so they're trying to commit you to seize the house?" "That sums it up," Eleanor said. "And are you?" Henderson asked. "Broke?" Eleanor looked him dead in the eye. "I have no access to liquid cash at this moment." Henderson nodded. "And you, Miss Turner? You're paying for my retainer?" I put a check on his desk. It was for $5,000. It was my emergency fund, my vacation fund, and my new truck fund all rolled into one. "I'm paying," I said. Mr. Henderson took the case. The weeks leading up to the hearing were hell. Marcus and Linda shut off Eleanor's phone service. They somehow convinced the family doctor to write a letter expressing concern based on their exaggerated reports without him even examining her.
That letter was their smoking gun. They used it to get a temporary freezing order on the house, meaning we couldn't even sell a painting to buy food if we wanted to. I maxed out my credit cards, I bought heating oil, I bought food, I paid for Eleanor's heart medication out of pocket because her insurance lapsed due to an administrative error that I suspected Marcus orchestrated. The psychological warfare was intense. They would park outside the gate and just watch. They sent emails to other family members, cousins, distant relatives, claiming I was abusing Eleanor, that I was the one isolating her, that I was holding her hostage in a freezing house. I became a pariah. My own mother, who had always been passive, called me crying, begging me to just let Marcus handle it. I realized then that I was the only line of defense. If I stepped aside, Eleanor would vanish into the system, and the house would be sold to cover Marcus's gambling debts and Linda's shopping addiction. The day of the hearing arrived. The weather matched the mood. Gray, sleeting rain. I drove us to the courthouse in my truck because the town car in the garage had a dead battery and flat tires. The courtroom was intimidating. Mahogany walls, high ceilings, and the smell of floor wax. Marcus and Linda were already there, sitting with their lawyer, Silas Thorne. They looked impeccable. Marcus in a tailored suit, Linda in a somber black dress as if she were already at a funeral. They looked like concerned, grieving children. When we walked in, me in my best blazer and khakis, Eleanor in a wool coat that had seen better days, they didn't even look at us. They looked through us. The judge was a stern woman named Judge Patterson. She didn't look like she tolerated nonsense. Mr. Thorne started his opening statement, and it was a work of fiction. "Your Honor," he began, his voice smooth as silk, "we are here with heavy hearts. My clients love their mother dearly. But it has become undeniably clear that Eleanor Turner is no longer capable of managing her affairs or her own person. In a span of weeks, she has squandered a multi-million-dollar fortune. She is living in a house with no heat. She is being influenced by a granddaughter, Miss Zoe Turner, who has no financial means and is likely exploiting the situation for free housing." I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. Exploiting? I was eating instant ramen so Eleanor could have fresh vegetables. Thorne continued, "We have affidavits from neighbors who claim the property is falling into disrepair. We have a statement from a physician expressing concern about dementia. The most compassionate thing for Eleanor is to be placed in the state facility at Oak Haven, where she can receive round-the-clock care, while my clients salvage what little remains of the estate to pay for her long-term needs." It sounded convincing. If I didn't know the truth, I would have believed him. Then it was Mr. Henderson's turn. He stood up slowly, buttoning his jacket. "Your Honor," he said, his voice raspy but clear, "this isn't a case of dementia. It is a case of disappointment. The petitioners aren't worried about their mother's health. They're worried about their inheritance. They're not here to protect her. They are here to discard her." We spent hours going through the evidence. Thorne brutally cross-examined me. He brought up my military service, trying to paint me as unstable. "Ms. Turner, isn't it true you've been treated for PTSD?" he asked. "I have," I said, staring him down. "It means I know how to handle high-stress situations, like this one. And isn't it true you have less than $200 in your bank account right now?" "Yes, because I spent the rest caring for my grandmother after her children abandoned her," I shot back. Judge Patterson intervened. "Watch your tone, Miss Turner." It looked bad. The narrative was that Eleanor was broke and senile, and I was broke and stubborn. The logic of the court was leaning toward the safe option, the conservatorship. Finally, Mr. Henderson called Eleanor to the stand. The room went quiet. Eleanor walked to the witness box. She didn't use a cane. She stood tall. "Ms. Turner," Henderson asked, "do you know where you are?" "I am in the Superior Court," Eleanor said, her voice strong, "before Judge Patterson." "Do you know why you are here?" "Because my children want to take my freedom, because they believe I lost their money." Thorne objected. "Objection characterizes the petitioners unfairly." "Overruled," the judge said. "I want to hear this." Henderson continued.
Mrs. Turner, tell the court about your finances. Are you destitute? Eleanor looked at Marcus, then at Linda. She held their gaze until Linda looked away. No, Eleanor said. Thorne jumped up. Your Honor, the witness is clearly delusional. We have the bank records. The main accounts are at zero. Sit down, Mr. Thorne, the judge snapped. Let her speak. Eleanor reached into her heavy tote bag. She pulled out a thick binder. 6 months ago, Eleanor began, I was diagnosed with a minor heart arrhythmia. It made me think about the future. I looked at my children and I saw strangers. I saw people who hadn't worked a day in their lives, who waited for my monthly transfers like hungry dogs. I wondered, if the money was gone, would the love remain? The courtroom was dead silent. So I devised a test, Eleanor said. I didn't lose the money. I moved it. Marcus's head snapped up. What? He mouthed. I created an irrevocable trust, Eleanor continued, opening the binder. I transferred the liquid assets, the investment portfolios, and the deed to the house into the Eleanor Turner Living Trust. I moved the cash to accounts in a different bank, one that Marcus doesn't have the login for. I emptied the decoy accounts, the ones they watch, to zero. She handed the binder to the bailiff, who handed it to the judge. Judge Patterson opened the binder. Her eyebrows shot up. She flipped through the pages.
The record should reflect, the judge said, her voice echoing, that these documents show a balance of quite a significant amount, over $20 million in diverse holdings. You could hear a pin drop. Then, a sound from the back, Linda gasping. I told them I was broke, Eleanor said, her voice hardening, and within 48 hours, they stopped visiting. Within a week, they cut off the bargainer. Within 2 weeks, they filed to have me locked away. They didn't offer to help. They didn't offer to move in with them. They tried to dispose of me. She turned to look at me. Only one person stepped up. Zoe. She thought I was penniless. She spent her own savings to feed me. She fought for me when she had nothing to gain but a burden. Eleanor turned back to the judge. I am not incompetent, Your Honor. I am heartbroken, but I am perfectly capable of managing my affairs. Mr. Thorne looked like he had been slapped. He was shuffling papers frantically. Your Honor, this is entrapment. This is a manipulation of the court. It is a revelation of character, Henderson shouted, slamming his hand on the table. Judge Patterson silenced the room with her gavel. It sounded like a gunshot. She looked at Marcus and Linda. Her expression was one of pure disgust. I have sat on this bench for 20 years, Judge Patterson said. I have seen families fight over scraps, but I have rarely seen such a calculated, cold-blooded attempt to warehouse a parent for financial gain. She looked at the binder again. The petition for conservatorship is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I am ordering the petitioners to pay all legal fees for Mrs. Turner, including the retainer paid by Miss Zoe Turner. But we're not done yet. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Thorne, your filing was based on medical evidence that appears to be stretched. I will be referring the doctor who signed this affidavit to the medical board for review. And as for you two, she pointed a finger at Marcus and Linda. If you ever step foot in my courtroom again with a frivolous suit against this woman, I will hold you in contempt so fast your heads will spin. Get out. The bang of the gavel was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. The aftermath was chaotic in the hallway. Marcus and Linda tried to approach Eleanor. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a desperate, sweaty panic. Mom, please, Marcus stammered, reaching out. You have to understand, we were scared. We thought you were sick. We were trying to protect you. Eleanor didn't even stop walking. She stopped, turned slowly, and looked him up and down. You wanted to protect me by putting me in a state facility, Marcus? You didn't even look at the brochures. You just picked the cheapest one. I saw the paperwork. Mom, it's a misunderstanding.
Linda cried, tears streaming down her face, tears for her lost inheritance, not for her mother. Eleanor signaled to Mr. Henderson. "Hand them the copies," she said. Mr. Henderson pulled 2 envelopes from his briefcase and handed them to my aunt and uncle. "What is this?" Marcus asked. "My new will," Eleanor said, "and the terms of the trust." She stepped closer to them. "As of this morning, the trust is the sole owner of all my assets, and the sole beneficiary of that trust, upon my passing, is Zoe Turner." Marcus looked like he was going to vomit. "You can't do that. We're your children." "You are my biological children," Eleanor said coldly, "but you are not my family. Family is who holds your hand when the darkness comes. You left me in the dark. Zoe brought the light." She turned to me and took my arm. "Take me home, Zoe. We have a lot of work to do." We left them standing in the courthouse hallway, clutching the papers that sealed their fate. I drove Eleanor back to the Gables in my beat-up truck. The resolution wasn't just about the money. It was about the cleaning of the house, literally and metaphorically. The next few months were a whirlwind. With the assets revealed, the staff was rehired, the heat was fixed, but things were different. Eleanor didn't just go back to the status quo. She appointed me as the trustee immediately. She wanted me to learn how to manage the empire. I quit my job at the engineering firm, not to become a lady of leisure, but to help her run the charitable foundation she decided to launch. We set up a program to provide legal defense for the elderly facing financial abuse. It felt poetic. As for Marcus and Linda, the fallout was absolute. Without the monthly allowance, their house of cards collapsed. Marcus lost his home to foreclosure 3 months later. Linda's husband divorced her when the money dried up. They tried to sue to contest the trust, but Judge Patterson's ruling and the transcript of that hearing made their case impossible. No lawyer would touch them. I see them occasionally, usually at a distance in town. They look older, tired. They glare at me, but they don't approach. They know better. The most satisfying moment, however, wasn't the money or the vindication. It was a quiet evening a few weeks after the trial. I was sitting in the library with Grandma Eleanor. The fire was crackling. We were drinking tea. Good tea this time. She looked at me over the rim of her cup. "You know," she said, "I was terrified." "Of the court?" I asked. "No," she said. "I was terrified that when I told the lie, that when I said the money was gone, that you would leave too. I was terrified I would be truly alone." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "Never, Grandma. I'm a soldier. We don't leave people behind." She smiled, and it was the genuine smile of a woman who was safe. My family sued a broke old woman thinking she was easy prey. They forgot that she was the one who built the kingdom they were trying to steal. They wanted everything for nothing. In the end, they got exactly what they deserved. Nothing. And I got the greatest inheritance of all, not the money, but the undeniable proof that doing the right thing, even when it costs you everything, is the only way to live. My name is Zoe Turner, and that is how we won the war.